Hey guys, hope all is well. This is episode 48 of the Rugby Recap. You have myself, Rugby Itch, as well as the Kiwi lads. First of all, man, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right, Tim. We had a big weekend last week with the Seven Super Rugby Champions Cup as well, the round of 16 coming into the quarters this weekend. There's a lot of good rugby at the moment, and I feel like even though Super Rugby we've only got 4 games a weekend, it's a nice little change of pace before we go flat out, which is just around the corner. Super Rugby URC and all sorts taking place.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is going to be a big week, obviously, in terms of Super Rugby, like you said, with the Champions Cup coming into the quarterfinal rounds and all that, and just finished with Hong Kong Sevens. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about within this episode. But of course, before we do so, make sure, obviously, the guys like the video, like this video, guys, like the episode. Comment below, letting us know what your thoughts are on all the competitions we're going to talk about, as well as just just subscribing to our channel if you haven't already. But again, we'll start off with just kind of briefly talking about the Hong Kong Sevens, which happened last week. Of course, as many of you know, I was there live at the event, and yeah, I thought it was awesome to watch. It kind of felt weird that it was the last time ever being hosted at the Hong Kong Stadium
Mm.
because it's obviously it's kind of ingrained with that kind of whole sevens in a way, and it kind of that's what makes the culture kind of stand out, I guess, compared to other kind of rugby stadiums around the world. But it'll be interesting to see like if they're really able to kind of I don't know, have the same culture at the new stadium. But the most important thing is that if they're able to kind of keep that same kind of energy and vibe that you get from the South Stand into the new one. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, what was your thoughts kind of on the competition as a whole?
Well, I thought it was a relatively good competition on a whole. I saw a video, Tim, and I'm sure you would have known about the video, but it was a fella in the South Stand who I think he was singing along to a song and he was absolutely off his face. It's on like the Rugby Itch YouTube channel or something
Yeah,
when he was at the Hong Kong Sevens. That was an interesting one. Anyone who hasn't already seen that video,
yeah,
of course, be sure to check it out. Seemed like you were enjoying yourself, Tim. Seemed like you had had a few too many and you were
yes.
absolutely loving the
I
atmosphere,
I had
eating it all up.
I was definitely at that point I was just off. Like I think I just even said in the description I was just off my head. Literally during that one, I was like, why do I have this video? And I was like, I'll just put it in because it's just it's a great video to just kind of show the people. But yeah, no, it was it was a good Friday actually. In a weird way, like I don't think I've ever drank as much on a Friday ever in my
Mm.
life in terms of Hong Kong Sevens. But no, it was a good Friday in terms of turnouts, and then Saturday obviously is like the big day in terms of what you're going to wear and costumes wise, and we went early, like we took the 6 a.m. ferry from where we are in Discovery Bay to get to the
Mm.
Hong Kong Stadium. So because they opened the gates around at 7, so we wanted to be in just to make sure we're in the South Stand because it does get full normally, very quickly. But lucky to us, the South Stand actually only got full by I think like 1 p.m. So we actually had a ton of time in our hands. But again, like the reason why we did it in the first place is obviously just to get into a good position and kind of get into the middle, which is important. But no, it was good. It was good for a Saturday, and then yeah, like I said, Sunday was just one of those games. Well, was the day really just more where I didn't spend as much time in the South Stand. I kind of just went to more of kind of family friends, my dad, and just kind of watched the rugby more and watched more of the rugby rather than the last 2 days. But no, it's just a good environment. Again, like I had the opportunity to kind of see kind of around the stadium. I mean, I saw there was a lot of kind of like I guess rugby celebrities to say the least that were there. Like you had like Dwayne Vermeulen, Victor Matfield, you had Skolsberger, you had I'm trying to think who else. I think there was maybe Sean Fitzpatrick. I'm not sure. There was gosh, who else was there? There was Dan Carter. There was the whole Matt Gitu, Adam Ashley Cooper, and Drew Mitchell for their show. There was the Good, the Bad, and Rugby with James Haskell, who was DJing, of course, and Mike Tyndall, and then was there as well. And there's a list of names, even like the Weasley twins. Actually, the Weasley twins were there, which is kind of an old one, but yeah, they actually were in the South Stand, so it was kind of cool just to see like they were just kind of in the atmosphere. But yeah, no, it was a really good just sevens to be at, and yeah, just like I said, looking forward obviously towards the next one. But again, we'll move on then towards, of course, towards Super B. Like we were kind of discussing off the recording, it was a very kind of one-sided, I guess, week, the previous one. But I don't personally think we're going to see that for this week because looking at the games we have now, there's some pretty, there's going to be some good games going off this week. First one, of course, being Mono Pacifica versus the Reds. And yeah, kind of what's your thoughts on that one? Because I think this could actually be a lot closer than what most people would predict.
See, it's a tricky one for Moana Pacifica because they've conceded around 110 points from their last two games, if not 120. And like the Reds, they've been a little bit up and down lately. You know, they had a couple good performances early, then they struggled in certain games. They lost to the Brumbies in a contest that they should have won, but they weren't able to get over the line. They've had a bye week. There's a chance that we see another 50 points put on Moana Pacifica. And it would be a shame, but, you know, at least they're not playing at Eden Park this week up against the home side or playing in Queensland as the home team. Like, at least they've got some sort of home ground advantage in Seminoff Stadium. But, it's an unfortunate reality that it seems like that Moana Pacifica momentum that they created right at the start of the competition, how everyone went, top 8 team. Then all of a sudden,
going down a bit.
Wooden spoon. Seems like it's more likely at the moment, but hopefully not. Hopefully they put it in a decent game. I just wouldn't be surprised if the Reds win it by like 40 plus.
Really? Okay. I honestly think I still think the Reds can win this, but I don't think it's going to be like a 40 plus game. But the only reason really to my thinking is because it's at Moana Pacifica, you know, it's at home. It's not like in Queensland. So I'd like to think there'll be a lot more up for it in terms of this game if they were, you know, because I know that game obviously against the Brumbies, like you referred to, they were away in that one. So it's one of those like where it was definitely not in their favor because the Brumbies obviously they're pretty good at home anyway. But it's gonna be interesting because again, like, you know, a lot of these players, I mean, from Moana Pacifica, they need to step up, I'd say, in this one. So hopefully they can do it. But I think we're both kind of edging towards the Reds, it seems like, for that one.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. But again, moving on towards the next one of the bunch, we have Wartars versus the Crusaders. Again, we did see this game within the Super Round, if I'm not mistaken. So it's one of those where this would have actually been that would have been a Crusaders home game. But of course, this is now being played. This is now a home game for the Wartars. So it's one of those like where the Crusaders, it's a weird one, like the position they're in at the moment because they've now won their first game, of course. You know, kind of was it last week? See, this is where my brain is kind of going all over. It was week prior, right? Yeah, so week prior, they obviously got their first win against the Chiefs, which is a big one really for them. Really a big win for them actually because you don't see the Chiefs lose often, but. Now they can hopefully kind of use that game and kind of build onto the next one, which is this one. But again, the Wartars had their number in the last one, so I don't know what to think about it. Like, what's your take on this game?
I think the trickiest part here is the fact that we didn't get to see the Crusaders play in week 7. Because if they had got their win over the Chiefs last week, we'd say, you know, they've got a lot of momentum heading into this contest. But now they've had that time to rest. They've had that time to think about it. And is that going to be a blessing or a curse for the Crusaders? That's probably the biggest question we've got to ask for this round. The Waratahs coming off a loss to the Brumbies. They were kind of close at halftime, but once again, 24-point difference between those two sides. The Tars aren't in that same position as they were near the start of the competition. A little bit similar to Moana Pacifica, except they aren't conceding 50 points a game. They're conceding 40. So, you know, it's going to be a tricky one to be able to judge. I do actually see the Crusaders as a side that could come into this game and get redemption for what happened in that Super Round. I can see them getting themselves a victory, but I can also see the Waratahs with the selections that they've made being able to still compete. And if their backline's firing away from home, we've got to remember a couple of the Crusaders games that they have been close in or that they've won have been when they're at Orange Theory Stadium. They're on foreign soil here. I'm still going to say the Crusaders, though. I think they're starting to get their season back on track.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go with them.
Do you think it'll be a close game, or do you think like the Crusaders could just run away with it in this one?
I think that it will be relatively close, but then at the same time, if the Crusaders are really going for it early, you know, you could see 15 points in favour of the Crusaders. In fact, what I'm going to quickly do, in terms of betting odds, I actually want to see what the likeliness is for the Crusaders in terms of if they're more likely to win by 13 plus or if they're more likely to just win. So quickly checking. Crusaders are considered favourites, $1.25. So just a little bit less of a favourite than the Reds are. to beat Moana Pacifica. And in terms of the winning margin, yeah, Crusaders 13 plus is actually the most likely out of all of the types of results. So
I'm not surprised with that, by the way. This is what I was going to say, actually, going into this one, where, like, if I had to actually sway where I'm going with, I'm actually thinking the Crusaders can do the job in this one, just because, again, obviously, you have that one aspect where they just want to get revenge on the Waratahs from that previous battle they had early in the season. I think the Crusaders they're looking like the Crusaders of norm, kind of like we want to see them kind of just continue on that game off the Chiefs, like I said, and I think they have the players that do it. I thought a lot of the players actually stood up actually in that game. With Johnny McNichol obviously getting double in that against the Chiefs. They have a good combination there with Daz McLeod as well as Levi Mua. Again, I would say Levi Mua. This may be a bold claim, but I honestly don't think he's lived up to the expectation to what he was kind of brought in for. Again, there's obviously a lot of time for this to change, but just for what I've seen so far, I haven't been impressed. But again, this could change in the amount of like 3 games where he picks up a bit of consistency, gets his stats up and all that, and then that's when Scott Robinson, of course, from an All Blacks possession, will be like, okay, this could be our guy. So like it just depends on kind of a run of form, but. Again, I mean, yeah, the Crusaders just have a great team. Again, and also the big mention for the Waratahs as well is that they actually have dropped Mark Nakwatawasi. So that's a big call for them to do that. So again, I'm not sure if that's just to do with like the lineup or if this is something for the long term. You never know how that's going to go. But I am with you that I think the Crusaders will win this one. So it seems that we're kind of 2 for 2 at the moment in terms of our predictions there. But again, moving on towards the Saturday games, the first one being the Hurricanes versus the Chiefs. This is probably the key battle of the round. There's no doubt about it, really. This is the game that's going to be really fascinating to watch because I think both sides are in good form. Like this is going to be a good game to watch. Again, the Chiefs kind of obviously did well in that the last game they had against Moana Pacifica, wiping the floor of them like 68 points to 12. So I think they're honestly coming into this game with some good kind of form under the belt. But the Hurricanes, it's just the Hurricanes have been so impressive this year. Like particularly at home, they've never really looked at all at weak at any point, I'd say. Like again, if they've looked weak, it's probably been by a bit of luck, I'd say, just from the opposition sides. But yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts on this one? Because I honestly think this could be. I don't want to say. I'll let you go first because I may have a bold claim in this one, but let me get your thoughts on this.
Okay, so I think that this is going to be match of the weekend. It's just got that written all over it. You look at the lineups, you look at the form, you look at where these two sides are sitting on the table, and you can't help but just have a little smile and say, yep, the matchmakers have got this one right. And this is one of those games that, of course, we're going to see the Hurricanes' first chance for TJ Perenara at number 9 after the Cam Roigard injury. What kind of impact will that have on their form? They also are missing the weeks prior that they have played. They got a bye, so they're in the same boat as the Crusaders, whereas the Chiefs have been week in, week out playing. Of course, they are going to be missing next week, but this week still in action. They've got McKenzie at 10. Their backline is stacked once again. Wallace Satiti at number 8 is an interesting choice with the change of Luke Jacobson going to 7. I would have thought if it wasn't broke, don't fix it. They still seem to have Kalen Boshi off the bench. So it's an interesting choice. It's one of those ones that can either make or break a side and can either give them momentum and a new name on the scene, or it could be one of those parts of their lineup that could actually weaken it. I am going bold, going with the underdogs here, and I'm saying the Hurricanes pull off the win. But I honestly couldn't tell you a score.
The underdogs? What are you on about?
They are the underdogs. In terms of the betting odds, the Hurricanes are considered as underdogs. I can show you them if you want. They are $2.15 underdogs compared to the Chiefs, who are $1.72.
What? Okay, well, that's a great bet.
I don't make the rules, Tim. I'm just relaying the information.
I'm so surprised by that. Like, they're the underdogs in terms of the betting?
Chuck your money on them.
That's just, I'm not going to, Again, like I said, guys, I don't encourage any of that, but it's just one of those where I'm just surprised with that. I'm like, the Hurricanes have been they haven't lost a game this season. So
I think the fact that they didn't play last week is something that's impacted it a little bit. Plus the fact that the Chiefs did score 60-something points in their last game.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Chiefs have an awesome team. I mean, like you said, obviously they've been that change of number eights, but besides that, they've been incredible. And again, like the one thing which I find interesting here is that they've actually put Pohippie off the bench, which in my opinion, I'm not sure if this is gonna be a mistake because again, like they have Daniel Rona there, who's been awesome actually when he started as well. But those two are really like interchangeable. So like it's going to be interesting to see if because and I know obviously they have Anthony Brown I believe, playing at number 12 there. But I would love to see kind of all three of them in kind of in the lineup there. But again, when you have someone like Amoni Nawa back, it's pretty hard to do that. And Nana Satira obviously had a great game the week prior, of course. But I mean, yeah, when you look at the Hurricanes, I mean, the Hurricanes just have a stacked back line as well. They've in the Hollow, Barrett's, Proctor, like it's just dangerous everywhere. Everywhere is just dangerous on both sides. So it's going to be a really close game. I think like the way I'm thinking about this is like where I think most people would say it's going to be like a 2 or 3 point difference. I don't think that. I think it's going to be one of those like where it's going to be a close game for the majority of it, but then I think one team will just run away with it at the end. I think, and honestly, I think it's going to be the Hurricanes. I think the Hurricanes are just going to just step it up here. And again, it could be the opposite way around, where the Hurricanes maybe like just take the lead very early on, and then maybe the Chiefs come back into it. You never know, but I just think the Hurricanes are kind of the team I'm looking into this fixture in terms of winning. But yeah, I mean, look from a Blues perspective. I mean, from a bias perspective, of course, I would definitely love the Chiefs to win because it would help us out. But yeah, I just think the Hurricanes are too strong. And like you said, with TJ Perinar there, it's not a really bad replacement for Cam Roygoyd. So they're very kind of fortunate to have someone with that amount of experience in that position as well. But yeah, so who do you think? Do you think the Hurricanes or do you think the Chiefs in this one?
So you're backing the underdog, Tim. Is what you're telling
Yeah, I
me.
mean,
You're
I'm
backing the
backing the
Canes.
underdog, but
I am also backing the Hurricanes
yeah,
for this one. I think that a lot of the pressure is going to be on Brett Cameron at 10 because he is going head to head with
yeah,
Damian McKenzie here, and I would say that might almost be arguably the biggest task that he has had so far as fly half throughout the season. Like he's faced a
yeah,
lot of great
yeah,
tens, but
yeah.
McKenzie at the moment does seem to be that front runner as the AB's 10. So if Cameron can really, I guess, go knock for knock with him in this game, I think that will do a massive amount for his stock and in terms of his chances of maybe getting that little bit of a chance of an AB's call up.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you. It's a pretty good battle, of course, in the 10 spots, but I think, I mean, I think there's more. If I'm looking like at the lineups for both sides, like the two that I'm interested because now he's also shifted towards the number 7 spot is actually Peter Lakai versus Luke Jacobson as the two number 7s there. That'll be a key battle within that forward pack. And then I'm actually looking at the number 15 with Ruben Love and Sean Stevenson because I think both of them are in the conversation to kind of get an All Blacks call up. So I think that's another kind of key area to look at both sides. But
See,
yeah,
I'd
like
also say
yeah,
nine's important for this game because you've got
yes,
Cortez Ratama and you've got TJ Perenara, who now that we've seen the Roygaard injury, people are saying maybe
yeah.
TJ's back in the ABs if he can perform
That's the
when
thing
he's in
too.
the starting lineup.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wouldn't say it's a battle of the. It's really just more seeing what TJ Bernard can do. I'd say that because like I think
Mm,
Corey Fatima has been awesome so far this season. So like I
mm.
said, I think he's definitely up there in the All Blacks calling already kind of in the selection kind of area of what they're looking at. But again, Peranar has to kind of showcase it first before, in my opinion. I know that is a harsh thing to say because again he has so much experience that it's not he doesn't have to do a lot. Yeah, so just again, like I said, just TJ Barrynall just has to kind of just showcase what he's done in the past. So I think that's just what he has to do. But again, we'll move on then, of course, towards the final one of this round, which is the likes of the Rebels and Highlanders. It's going to be a key one to see kind of who gets this one because I remember you mentioning it actually within the previous episodes, and where the Rebels you mentioned are kind of a team that kind of goes back and forth in terms of their form. They're never really a consistent side, so they're either going to win one week or kind of lose the other one. So you just don't know when they're going to kind of step up because they haven't been able to kind of have a run of consistent games. But again, the Highlanders, you could also say technically you could also say the same thing for them because they're a team which is like they kind of win and lose throughout the season. They haven't really been able to kind of form a bit of a streak. But I don't know. I mean, like, I'll go straight to you first. Like, what's your thoughts on this game? Because I think both sides are kind of even, in my opinion. Again, I could be completely wrong here, but I think honestly, both sides are going into this kind of in an even position.
They are quite even. In terms of the betting odds, they're relatively close. The
There
Rebels
you
come
go.
in as slight underdogs, even though they're at home. But to be honest, that is understandable. I think the
Yeah,
Highlanders, they are considered as favourites going into this game, and they have got the potential of being able to win it. But the Rebels also, if their backline fires and the forward back them up, like they are a team
yeah,
that could be contenders this year. When you look through at their backline, they've got a couple seven superstars in there, of course, with Lancaster as well as,
yeah,
Lockie Anderson. You've got Callaway at 15, Dalgunu in the midfield, who has been in some pretty good form. But if the Highlanders can play even, I want to say, 80% of what their potential is for the backline that they have, they should have a decent chance. I think it's a little bit of a concern for them in some regards with that change at 10, but I think that it's a welcome change because we haven't seen the best of Reece Patchell for the last maybe 3 or 4
yeah.
weeks. And now that they've gone with Faliafunga, I think that that might actually give them a little bit of freedom there to be able to use that back line in a fearless manner because Patchell, he's been hesitant and it's been costing them a huge amount of points over the
Yeah,
last few weeks
yeah,
as sides are just starting to work him out. They're like, we'll put pressure on him. We'll make him throw that wide cutout pass and cheers, that's a try. So, yeah, I think Faliafunga is a
yeah.
very good option at 10, even though it's a risky change, of course, but with the back line on his outside, I'm going to say the Highlanders get the job done. And
Okay.
that's not
Makes
because I'm
sense.
from New Zealand, because some people say, oh, you're biased, you backed all the New Zealand sides. But, two New Zealand sides playing each other, couldn't back them both, could I?
Oh, you never know. You could like just go. I don't know. You could support a team that's in between them. I don't know. You could support a NBC team maybe. I don't know if there's an. I can't think of the team on the top of my head, but you can support an NBC team. You never know. But they may have a
Uh,
match on that. No. Anyway, but but again, from my perspective, I think, like I said, it's going to be a close game. I'm actually interested because I wasn't able to watch the highlights, so you can kind of give me an update on that. Was Darby Lancaster good in the previous game against the Fijian Drua? Like, what was he?
I thought so. I thought he had his moments. Like, he's still one of those players that I think is taking to Union a little bit. He's going to take a
Okay,
bit more time to find his feet, but I can honestly see him being very similar to Corey Toole in terms of you give him a
this
season
is
or
what I was
two
going to
and
say. Like,
all of a sudden
as a
top dog.
comparison,
So,
yeah,
yeah, like I feel like he did a lot of the basics right throughout that game, and something that really helped in that second half up against the Fijian Drua was the lack of Drua discipline, which just allowed running meters for days
yeah,
as
yeah,
they just kept on having advantages and they could just pretty much do what they wanted throughout that second half. But yeah, like he's still a very handy player, I would say, Darby Lancaster, and you give him 3 or 4 more games, I think he's going to be right up there. So I'm going to give you his exact stats as well from the last game while we're at it,
yeah. Why
just
not?
so that you can have a bit of an indication. So last game, he had 73 meters carried, 8 carries, 4 defenders beat him, 1 clean break, and an offload. And then in the tackling stat, he made 8 tackles, missed one turnover. So like it was solid. It wasn't
Yeah, I mean,
like the
the
most.
four defenders beating is pretty good. That's a good stat
Mm,
to have as four defenders beating. But the rest is more like as a winger, he did his job, and I think in every category. So that's good
yeah,
to see. That's
like
good to
most
see.
running meters out of any Melbourne Rebels player for
Yeah,
that game. So happy enough with that,
I'm
surely.
surprised. Really, that was the most. Not like
Yeah,
any
the
no one having
most.
the
Filippo Dalgunu had 67. Glenn
yeah.
Vai, who scored 2 tries, actually had
Did Kellaway play
46.
or no? Did was he playing that game?
Callaway did not play in that
Yeah,
game,
so
no.
see, that's the reason why I would have said I would if he was there, then he would have been the top one for sure. But again, I was gonna say for this one, like honestly, I think the key battle is gonna be Kellaway versus Jacob Latu Tabata Vuki Nebkins. But yeah, it's gonna be close because you could also say Felipe Dongado has been pretty impressive, and that battle kind of against him in today will be pretty interesting to see. But in that 13 kind of spot, but I'm trying to think in terms of the forwards. Is there a key battle that I can think of there? I mean, to be fair, I've actually been impressed by Sean Whitley at the number 6 spot for the Highlanders. He's looked good for me. I mean, I'm not saying he's been like impressive, but he's been. I've seen moments within games where I've been like, wow, here is this guy. Kind of like he kind of just he has he kind of gains. Yeah, he has a little ball carry meters. to say the least, for the Highlanders. And again, that battle between him and Kemery there at the number 6 will be pretty interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, again, like I said, I think this will be a close game, but I'm actually I'll do the kind of the first kind of change here, and I'll go with the Rebels to win. So again, this will be, I guess, I'm going with the underdog really for this game, but we'll see what happens, because again, the Rebels are playing at home and they are pretty good normally when it comes to home. So hopefully they can kind of replicate that forward to what we saw last week against the Fijian Drua. But again, moving away then from Super P, the final competition we just want to talk about quickly is, of course, the Champions Cup, which is happening, starting this week, really, with the likes of the quarterfinals. It's going to be fascinating to see kind of who kind of gets on top of each other here, because again, Bordeaux is obviously facing the likes of the Harlequins, Northampton versus Bulls, Leinster versus La Rochelle, and then Toulouse versus Exeter. So there's some really good games there. But I mean, just quickly on your perspective, like just off the basis of all the teams there, who do you think is just like the immediate favorite? Like, if you had to say one favorite out of the bunch just to win the comp, who would you say?
Well, I think the most impressive performance in some sort of regard was La Rochelle in their round of 16. We covered it on the channel up against the Stormers. They were very close to losing that game, but they were the only side in the round of 16 that won away from home.
Yeah, that's impressive.
That is one of those ones that wasn't just away from home, it was also in South Africa, which adds that little bit more oomph on top. And yes, there were circumstances. The Stormers had about 5 injured players. It was almost a replica of when those two sides played in the group stage of the Champions Cup. That last-minute try off a yellow card, and then Mani Lebok lining up that kick to either win it or lose it. And unfortunately for him, in this game, it was the loss for the Stormers. But there's still a South African side involved, the Bulls. I think that they're looking very strong. The slight disadvantage that I think a few of these sides will have is their home field advantage after the quarterfinals completely disappears. They go to neutral grounds for those matches onwards, and I feel like that is somewhere that is very hard to know how the Bulls are going to go. Because away from home in the URC, they have struggled a little bit. We've got to remember their last game up against Leinster, they were leading at halftime, then they went on to lose by about 30 points, somewhere around there. Leinster, I think, Champions Cup-wise, looking very strong. Toulouse ain't too bad. Bordeaux doing all right. It's actually very hard to tell who's got this Champions Cup, but I think that all the home sides are probably a little bit more challenged than they were last week, is all I'm going to say. I feel like no one's completely safe. Maybe Toulouse up against Exeter, I would say, is the easiest game to predict. But then saying that, I don't want to predict it because it will probably be wrong. But, there's a lot of excitement coming in this Champions Cup. And I feel like the South African sides being included has added that next level. Recently, we heard that the Club World Cup is going to be a thing involving 6 sides from the Champions Cup. Or 8 sides from the Champions Cup, 6 from Super Rugby and 2 elsewhere. So
probably Japan.
Probably. It makes sense to have it as a Japanese side. I don't think there's too many other leagues
you could have MLR if you wanted to, but then I just don't know if that's what you want to see, because again, like, you have just going off the top of my head here, I think it's the LA Griffins, if I'm not mistaken. Is it the Griffins or is it
Well, the biggest problem the MLR had is like 2 or 3 of their top teams then got knocked out completely. Like, not knocked out per se of the competition, but knocked out as in their clubs went bang and disbanded. So that's probably the risk you've got for the MLR at the moment, is you don't know who's staying, who's going. But I guess the Japanese sides as well, we've got to think of it in some regards of, it's a little bit risky as well because of those big international players, depending on what time of the year it takes place. Those sides could be bare, and they might have to go deeper into their squads than they ever have to be able to play. Yeah. Because, is it during the international window, which I would hate to see, but then the international window is so wide that, sides are going to be missing a lot of their players. It's a competition that everyone wants to see, but I don't think everyone's really taken into consideration when it would take place and how you would do it in a way that allows all of the sides a fair advantage in terms of the overall comp. But to go back to your question of who do I think has the best chance in terms of the quarterfinals, It's hard. I think Leinster La Rochelle's got the potential of being the game of the weekend. I like the fight that we saw from the Quins up against Glasgow. Bordeaux, they had a slightly easier game. Northampton had to dig deep up against Munster, but up against a side like the Bulls. We haven't seen them play much in England yet, so
Yeah.
I have no idea, to be honest, Tim. Like, I'm not going to try and BS my way through it and say, oh, this side's got a good chance. I think that it's just going to be very good to watch.
Well, let's just say so quickly off the back. If you just had to say Bordeaux Harlequins, just off the bat quickly. You don't have to say anything.
Okay. I'm going Bordeaux that game.
Bordeaux. Okay, cool. So then,
but the Quins, unlucky.
So Leinster versus what is it? Leinster versus La Rochelle for that one.
Cheers. Yeah, it's a good game. It's going to be a good one. Leinster, I'd like to think, will back their strongest lineup. They did well up against the Leicester Tigers. La Rochelle had their big game last week, but they still look really good. I'm going to go Leinster.
Yeah, fair enough. And then Northampton versus Bulls.
That game I don't like. Only because the Bulls are such a good side.
Yeah.
But then they also have days.
So
yeah, but the Bulls are also like, they're such a hard team to know whether they're going to travel well or not. And I heard about like the travel conditions that they had to deal with getting into their game up against Leinster. And you're like, geez, that's one of the reasons that they probably didn't play that well. But then saying that, what's the flight like? Have they got good food on the flight? Is it a short one to Northampton?
Do they still have those business class seats? Or
I'm going to let a little bit of my South African bias down. I'm going to go the Bulls in that game.
Okay, fair. And then, of course, Toulouse, Exeter, I think you were in the direction of saying Toulouse always for that
I'm
one.
going Toulouse, yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, I think for myself, I mean, for Bordeaux Harlequins, I think that's the one where I'm going to just go different to you. I'm actually going to say Harlequins will win that one.
I like it.
Bit of an upset, I guess, for that one, because, again, Bordeaux have been pretty impressive so far for what I've seen. Again, when I go towards Leinster versus La Rochelle, I think Leinster are just going to win that easily. I think Leinster are going to win that. Then I'm going to go Northampton Bulls.
I've thought it before.
We'll see. But like Northampton Bulls, that is for me. That's the match of the week in terms of all the games. I think that'll be the closest one out of the bunch. But I think Northampton will win. I'm going to go with Northampton, and then I will say Toulouse. Similar to you.
I thought you were gonna try and be different and go with the big
I'm not going next to it. Like they're not as good as before. But I do know that I think the way it's going to work is that I believe what is it? It's Toulouse Exeter will go against the winner of Bordeaux Harlequins, if I'm not mistaken, and then it's Northampton Bulls goes against the winner of Leinster La Rochelle, if I'm not mistaken, for the semis in that way. But can you tell me if you know where are the neutral grounds we played for the semifinals? Because is it in the same stadium? Is it in because I think it's where's this? It's been played in Dublin. Is it Dublin this year or was it in Twickenham?
I think the final's going to be. Oh, it might be Twickenham this year.
Or was it Tottenham? Or was it Tottenham Hotspur? Actually, I think it is Tottenham. Actually, the more I think about it,
Champions Cup semi-final locations. We're going to get this information.
Yeah, this is what you guys deserve.
Wait, why are they doing it for the 2000? Is that the right location? Right. And no. What year is this from?
It's all in the future. But I'm trying to see here.
This ain't right. This is from last year's one.
Yeah, I
could still be correct though.
It could be Tottenham Hotspur, I'd say. I think I saw Tottenham Hotspur as the stadium. That's where they're hosting the final, if I'm not mistaken. But again, like you said, maybe it's going to be hosted in that stadium. I don't know for the semifinals. But I mean, is that the way it's always been done in the previous kind of? Because this is where my knowledge is a bit bleak. If they host the semifinals in the same stadium as the final.
See, now they're like the one that I've got. I think this is from the wrong year. Because they've got about how, like, the semifinals, you still have your home field advantage. But I think that was changed, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's now neutral for those ones. But either way, I'm sure they'll be great games, Tim.
It'll be good. It'll be good.
We can't find
the
information.
Exactly.
I found the betting odds, though. Fun fact. Would you like to know about them?
I mean, I expect it's for all the home teams. I'd be very surprised if it's not. But go ahead. Go ahead.
So, for the Champions Cup, Bordeaux are considered heavy favourites over the Harlequins, but they are the second most favourite of the weekend. Then
I wonder why.
Leinster are
Has to be
considered
first.
as the favourite.
Yeah,
The
that's not.
Saints are
That's
considered as
not.
the favourite, but the least amount of gap between those two
Yeah,
for Saints and the Bulls, and then Toulouse are $1 favourites over the
yeah.
Exeter Chiefs. So,
Fair
yeah,
enough.
could
Fair
be some
enough.
one-sided games, but also at the same time, I'm optimistic. You know, you've got to be optimistic every once in a while.
Exactly.
It's good for
Exactly.
you.
Yeah, but I did want to just quickly comment on that kind of that Club World Cup that's obviously been announced recently as well, because it looks interesting to see what's going to happen. Because, like you say, if they're going to be, for what I've heard, they're going to be like the actual time in terms of when they're scheduling it throughout the global calendar will be within June, if I'm not mistaken. So they'll kind of like condense the season for a lot of the European stuff that kind of coincide with that. So it means that for the Southern
Mm.
Hemisphere, it means that they'll have to maybe do something similar in the way. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but for what I've heard is that it's going to be sometime within June, late June in a way. But again, I'm not sure if that means that they'll what does that mean? There'll be no kind of July international fixtures. Mean we'll just go straight towards the Rugby Championship, or if the July international fixtures only happens and I'm not sure really how it's going to work because again, this is only a 1 year thing by the
Mm.
way because it only will start within 2028. So they have a lot
We've
of time
got
obviously
plenty
to
of time,
sort
don't
it,
we?
sort
We've
it
got
out.
four
So
years to
exactly,
smooth
exactly.
out the cracks.
Exactly. But yeah, that's kind of it, guys. Again, hopefully you guys obviously enjoyed us talking about the rugby and yeah, kind of just getting back to the thing of things. But anyway, like we said, make sure obviously to like the video, guys. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Check out our respective channels, and yeah, we'll see you guys next time.